Planned Parenthood is taking legal action to prevent the last abortion clinic in Missouri from losing its license. While some states are focusing on banning abortion outright, Missouri's taken a different approach, placing strict regulations on the procedures and the doctors who perform it. It's actually driven clinics out of business. And if the license is not renewed by this Friday, Missouri will actually be the first state without legal abortion since Roe v. Wade was decided back in 1973. The president and CEO of Planned Parenthood, Dr. Leanna Wen, joins us now from St. Louis. Dr. Wen, tell us a little bit more about how you plan to fight this lawsuit.
Well, first, we need to state clearly that this is a public health crisis. This could be the first time in nearly half a century that an entire state is without access to safe, legal abortion care, which would impact more than 1.1 million women of reproductive age here in Missouri. So Planned Parenthood is filing a lawsuit against the state of Missouri so that we can keep on providing abortion care for our patients. Abortion is a safe, legal medical procedure that 1 in 4 women undergo in our lifetimes. And we know that banning abortion is not going to stop abortion, but it will stop safe, legal abortion.
And Dr. Wen,
as a doctor, I'm
sorry to cut you off. We also are just learning that tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. there's going to be a judge reviewing this case and looking into it. What do you hope will come from that?
Our expectation is that the judge will rule in our favor so that we can continue to provide safe, legal, accessible abortion care for the women of Missouri. And Planned Parenthood will be here to fight for our patients, providing care to all of our patients, no matter what.
And Dr. Wen, what was the reason that the state actually gave you for not renewing the license?
Look, we have to talk about how in the last 10 years and more, the state has imposed regulation after regulation that directly restrict our ability to provide abortion care. First, it was 72-hour waiting periods that have no basis in medicine. Then it was medically unnecessary and invasive pelvic exams, mandating extra wide hallways. These are requirements that the National Academy of Medicine have said have no basis in medicine and have everything to do with politics. And their most recent restriction is that they are requiring for 7 doctors to be subject to interrogation, including resident physicians and fellows who are obtaining their medical training. And these type of interrogation could subject them to criminal prosecution, which is just an unprecedented level of intimidation on our providers.
You know, here's what I just don't understand about this story. We've looked at the polling. Most recent Gallup of last summer found 64% of Americans in this country want Roe v. Wade to stand as it is, 64%. So what am I missing here? Why is there this sudden push in various states to, as you mentioned, restrict access to abortion?
We are seeing now just how extreme these anti-women's health politicians are and how far they're willing to go. The law that the Missouri governor just signed last week has no exceptions for rape and incest, would put doctors in jail for up to 15 years for providing abortion care, would even allow the state to investigate women for having miscarriages. And we're seeing the same thing happen in Alabama, in Georgia, all across the country. These politicians are defying the will of the American people. 71% of Americans want Roe versus Wade to remain the law of the land. And we want to increase access to health care, not take it away.
Yeah, I mean, as
we look at Missouri.
You know, there's just no denying it. Republicans have swept over the past 5 to 6 years state legislatures around this country. We've seen an increase in that. There's no disputing that. So how does your organization counter this at the state level when you've got these politicians who are making access limited?
We have to fight back in every way that we can, starting with the state level, because we know that courts are no longer a reliable backstop. With Trump in the White House, with Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, with so many judges that are appointed by a president who has made clear that he opposes the right to safe legal abortion, we have to focus on the states. And yet we're seeing these really harsh restrictions that will directly endanger women's health and lives. And we're even seeing in the case of Missouri that The governor is not even waiting until his law can be implemented. He's using all these other procedures and regulations to directly stop safe, legal abortion access here in Missouri. And so Planned Parenthood will be fighting back in the courts, will be fighting back in state legislatures, and through the Planned Parenthood Action Fund and our 13 million supporters and growing, we are going to be activating all of our supporters and women and men and all people who believe in health and rights in this country to stand up and fight back for our freedom and our futures.
And while potentially Missouri could be the first state to not have any access to abortion, any working abortion clinics by Friday, there are actually 5 other states, according to the research we've done, Kentucky, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, West Virginia, that actually only have one healthcare facility in the entire state that conducts abortion. So what do you say to women at this point who might not have the financial means to get on a plane, to get on a bus, to get on a train, to go to another state for an abortion? What's your advice to them?
Well, I'm glad you are mentioning this because the impact that these terrible policies will have are disproportionate for women who already face the greatest barriers to care. It's women with low income who live in geographically isolated areas, who live in rural areas. A woman who lives in Columbia, Jefferson City, in Springfield, they already have to drive hundreds of miles in order to access essential care and obtain childcare, time off from work, and face enormous expense. So I need our patients to know this, that abortion remains legal right now in all 50 states, that Planned Parenthood's health centers' doors are open. We are here for women. We will always be here for you, no matter what. And your access to healthcare, no one's access to healthcare should depend on how much money you have or where you happen to live.
You know, the Supreme Court today refused to hear a case in Indiana that relates to abortions for women related to sex, gender, or disability. I want to get your take on that. What did you make of the fact that the Supreme Court chose to sidestep that?
Well, we are still deeply concerned about this Supreme Court. Right now, as we speak, there are 15 cases that are one step away from the Supreme Court. And if any of them are taken up, then we could face the very real situation of Roe versus Wade being further eroded or overturned, in which case 1 in 3 women of reproductive age in this country, 25 million women, could be living in states where abortion is outlawed, banned, and criminalized. And by the way, the law alone is not enough because, as we see in the case of Missouri, you can still have abortion being legal on the books. But if there is no health center that can provide abortion care, then women will suffer and their lives will be in danger. This is a public health crisis.
We'll be following this story very closely. We want to thank you very much, Dr. Leanna Wen, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood. Leanna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.